So here we have another trig review. The first group is converting degrees and radians. So to remind you about that, your conversion is either multiplying by pi over 180 or multiplying by 180 over pi. So the way I think about it, whatever I want to cancel, I put in the denominator. So this first one is starting in degrees. Right, so if I want to cancel the degrees, then I want the degrees to be in the bottom. So I'm going to take 905 and multiply it by pi over 180. So what you're really looking at is simplifying a fraction. So you're going to have 905 pi over 180, and just ignore the pi and simplify the 905 over 180. So divide it by whatever number you can divide them by until they simplify down to their smallest numbers that you can. The TI-84 calculators are handy for simplifying fractions. You can type that in, and then if you hit math, and then the first option is frac, F-R-A-C, it'll turn your answer into a fraction. But the other way to do it is just start dividing by stuff. I mean, they can obviously both be divided by 5. So start with that. So divide them by 5, you end up with 181 over 36. And then from here, you can't divide 181 by 2 because it's odd. You can't divide by 3. And so yeah, if you start trying other things, you'll find out that that's as simplified as it goes. So right there's your answer. Okay, so yeah, just multiply by pi over 180 to get rid of degrees. If, like number 5 down here, if you start with the radians, if you start with the pi, you want to cancel the pi. So you're going to take whatever they give you and multiply by 180 over pi instead of pi over 180. Okay, because as you can see here, those pi's, you have one on top, one on bottom, so the pi's cancel out. And then you just simplify what's left. So if you multiply straight across, the top with the top, so the 4 times the 180, you end up with 720 over 9. And then if you try to divide that, 720 does divide by 9, you come out with 80. So there is your degree answer. All right, so if it starts with a pi, you multiply with the pi in the bottom. If it starts with degrees, you just multiply with the degrees in the bottom. So the rest of them are the SOHCAHTOA again, just like we saw yesterday. Remind yourself of that. Remember, the sine of the angle is equal to the opposite over hypotenuse. The cosine of the angle is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And then the tangent of the angle is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. Okay, so if you remember all that, then these are pretty easy. So you just need to pick out which pieces they give us. All right, so here's our angle down the bottom left. So there's the opposite because it's across from it. There's the adjacent. So that tells us that we're going to use the tangent. And then just set it up. Tangent 25.7 equals opposite on top, x over the adjacent on the bottom. So x over 14. Okay, so then you just solve that for x and on the tangent. So you just multiply by 14 in this case. Grab your TI-84 calculator or scientific calculator and take 14 times the tangent of 25.7 and you got your answer. So x equals, remember this is what you're typing in the calculator Okay, so type that in, and when you type that in, you should get 6.7. A lot more numbers after the decimal than that, but rounded to the nearest tenth. Okay, then the last group we're looking for the angles instead of looking for a side. The process is the same though. Okay, here's our angle that we're looking for. 7 is across from it, so it's the opposite. 8 is the hypotenuse, because it's across from the right angle. So the one that uses the opposite and the hypotenuse is the sine. So we have sine of the angle equals the opposite over the hypotenuse. And whenever you're looking for an angle, this is when you use the inverse functions. So we're going to have the inverse sine of whatever the fraction is, in this case 7 over 8, is going to equal our theta. So again, grab your calculator. If you have the TI-84, you do second sine, and then it gives you sine with a -1, and then you type the 7 over 8, and you get 61. So there's your angle. Okay, 61.0 rounded to the nearest tenth. All right, finish those up. If you have questions, let me know.